Hi, this is Sam Blumenfeld, back again to continue our lessons in alphaphonics. You know, it's very important to know how to read in this society. And we keep getting reports of how poorly so many American children are doing in school when it comes to reading. And that's because the schools don't know how to teach reading in the correct manner. I created Alphaphonics, this particular book, because I was so concerned about literacy in this country that I decided to make it as easy as possible for a parent to teach a child to read at home. I analyzed the English alphabetic system, and I devised a method of teaching that any parent could use. In other words, the parent does not have to go to a college to learn how to teach reading, doesn't need a certification. All the parent has to do is simply read the instructions in alphaphonics, and they'll be able to teach anybody to read, their children, even their relatives. You know, many years ago, when I was in college, I decided to teach my mother to read. Now, my mother was an immigrant from Poland who had been orphaned very early in life, and so she never had any education at all, and she was totally illiterate. So I know what it's like to be illiterate. And so I decided by the time I was in college, I'm going to teach my mother to read. I thought I could do it. After all, I knew how to read. I had no problem learning to read. And I knew she wanted to learn to read. So I first taught her the alphabet, and that she managed very nicely to learn. But then I didn't quite know what to do after teaching her the alphabet. So what I did was I wrote little sentences like, Sarah is my name is Sarah. And I had her simply repeat the words. In other words, I was teaching her to read our alphabetic system in a whole word method. And it didn't work because I really did not know how to teach someone else to read. Even though I could read, I didn't know how to teach my mother. And so she never learned, and I was very disappointed, and I never knew why I didn't know how to teach reading. Well, years later, when I decided to create a reading program for parents, I analyzed the English alphabetic system, and I discovered how you can teach anyone to read very easily. And I put it all in this book, Alphaphonics, which incidentally, if you'll notice, has no pictures. You don't learn to read by looking at pictures. You learn to read by learning the letters of the alphabet and the sounds that the letters stand for. Now, in English, we have a 26-letter alphabet. But believe it or not, we have a language composed of 44 irreducible speech sounds. Well, how do you use a 26-letter alphabet to stand for 44 sounds? Well, what we do is some of the letters stand for more than one sound. And today we're going to start with lesson 29, in which we teach a consonant digraph. That is a sound in English represented by two letters. And in lesson 29, that consonant digraph is SH, which we all know stands for sh. So here we are, SH. And what are the words that we use in SH? It's the sound as in ash, shag, and this is a single consonant sound represented by more than one letter. Represented by two consonant letters. Now, if you have the Alphaphonics book in front of you, you will notice that we arrange the new words in their spelling families. For example, ash, bash, cash, rash, sash. And at the bottom of that column, you will see the word wash. Now, the reason why that's not pronounced wash, as a matter of fact, we don't have a word in English pronounced wash. So we put that word in a little box because there's a bit of a vowel, a slight vowel deviation, vowel sound deviation. Wash is really wash. And in the gush hush family, we have bush and push. They're spelled like bush and push, but they're pronounced bush and push. That's what we do that's the problem we have in English, but it's no big problem because these are very common words that are easily learned. Now in lesson 30, we take up the consonant digraph CH, which stands for the ch sound, as in chap and rich. And the thing is to read those words, learn them, and learn to spell them. Such words as chap, chill, chip. We all know about potato chips, chuck, chug, etc. So you can use the Alpha Phonics lesson, that's lesson 30, to learn the CH words. In lesson 31, we take up the WH consonant graph, W, and it's pronounced as if it was spelled HWU, W. And you can articulate it carefully to distinguish between the simple W, which is W, W, W and W, W and W. There may not be much of a difference in the sound. It's so subtle. For example, when we say when, which, where, what, whiff, etc. English is a very interesting language in its different sounds, and obviously the WH words were pronounced differently centuries ago. Well, anyway, in lesson 32, we review all of the words with the digraphs. Cash, what, ship, rich, shut, when, chick, whip, chap, etc. Read those words and put them in interesting sentences. As a matter of fact, in lesson 33, those words are in sentences. For example, Dan had fish and chips, or Don had fish and chips. Which dish has the fish in it? Dan has a chill. Bud has a rash, etc. Read those words, and I think you'll find it very, that you will have become practically a reader. And of course, write them in cursive, because as I've said before, when you write cursive, the letters are joined together so that your hand learns to spell as well as to write the words. And spelling is very important. There's no sense learning to read if you don't learn to spell what you're reading. So cursive writing helps you learn to spell because you write from left to right and all the letters are joined. If you're printing, you don't have to write from left to right. And as a matter of fact, when people print the words, the letters can be all over the page and difficult to read. In any case, we go to the next lesson, lesson 34, in which we introduce our most important verbs, to have and to be. And the reason why we introduce these now is in case you want to sort of leap ahead and want to use these particular words which are so common. For example, I am, you are, she is, we are, they are, or I have, you have, he has, she has, we have, they have. And also the past tense of those two verbs, I was, I had, you were, you had, he was, he had, she was, she had, we were, we had, they were, they had. Now, the sole purpose of this lesson is merely to expand the learner's ability to read more interesting sentences. However, these words will be more thoroughly studied when encountered later in their own spelling families. Now, in Lesson 35, this lesson consists of practice sentences using the words learned in Lesson 34. Read the sentences and write them for practice. You may want to read the sentences aloud and write them, as well as if you are teaching them, you may want to dictate them, and thereby testing the spelling of the learner at this point. Now, in Lesson 36, we take up contractions. That is, two words contracted into one. For instance, is not is contracted into isn't. Now, we often say he is not going somewhere, or he isn't going. Cannot into can't. Like, I cannot go to the movies, or I can't go to the movies. Then we have has not is contracted into hasn't, H-A-S-N apostrophe T. The apostrophe signifies that the letter has been left out, has not, hasn't. And we do that in English all the time. We have it is becomes it's. Now, it's interesting that there are two ways to write it's. We have it's, which means it's, he has, or the dog has, is licking its paw. That's I-T-S. But then when we contract it is, we say the dog is in the room. We say the dog is in its room, I-T apostrophe S. Let us becomes let's, let apostrophe S. And did not is contracted into didn't. I did not go, or I didn't go. Note that an apostrophe is used to indicate where the two words are contracted. And read these words and write them for practice. In Lesson 37, we have practice sentences in which we use all of the contractions. And also point out that the apostrophe, when used in a contraction, denotes where a letter has been left out. In the word pegs, apostrophe S, it signifies possession, like Peg's cat, or John's dog. That would be John apostrophe S. In Lesson 38, we'd have two-syllable short vowel words. Now we can put two syllables, two short vowel syllables, to create new words. For example, hot dog. The word is hot dog. Box top. When you put box and top together, you get a two-syllable word, box top. Zigzag, catnip, ticket, velvet, tomcat, gallop, gal up, gallop, lesson, less sun, lesson, napkin, napkin, etc. And this will convey to you, the learner, the phonetic structure of multisyllabic words. That's how we read multisyllabic words, by breaking them up into syllables that are easily read and then connecting the syllables together. This is done with two-syllable words, three-syllable words, and words with even 5 syllables. We break them up into their syllabic units, and in that way we can actually see the phonetic structure of the word, which is very important. You know, when these days, when we're confronted with many multisyllabic pharmaceutical terms, the only way that you can actually read them is to break them up into their syllables, and then they can be easily read. Once we pronounce the word correctly several times, it can be read easily. It may be difficult to read it at the first glance, but if you read it several times, you'll be able to read it easily. Now, this lesson is also a good time to test spelling. After you have become familiar with the words, you should test your own spelling. The results will give you an idea of how well you've learned the alphabetic principle. And if you detect any weaknesses, go back to previous lessons for additional practice. That's the one very good thing about alpha phonics. You can always go back to a previous lesson if you have forgotten or if you're a little weak on something that you've learned previously. So have no hesitation in going back if you have to. Now, in lesson 39, we introduce sentences with the two-syllable short vowel words. And the thing is that you should write these sentences, read them, and of course write them so that you learn to spell, and also your hand becomes more acquainted with the practice of putting those letters together. Now, in lesson 40, we learn another sound of A. A, we've already learned the short A, and now we're learning another sound. A as in the word all, A-L-L. And as you will see, in that spelling family, you have, words like all, call, fall, tall, whole, etc. And you simply have to know this spelling family in order to pronounce these words correctly. Now, as you see, the short A with the one L is pronounced as al, as in also cal, gal, hal, and pal. But once we add a second L, that changes the sound of the A to aw. All, call, gall, hall, Paul, etc. Now also we have some practice sentences in that lesson so that you can see these words in the context of a full sentence. Like Cal hit the ball with the bat. His jacket is in the hall. Call Cal. Call Cal. Two sounds of A. A is aw, and the short A, ah. Call Cal. And the reason why we have these two sounds for the letter A is, as I've said, we have 26 letters, but we have 44 sounds. And that's one of the ways that we make the most of our 26 letters, is to use them to stand for more than one sound. All right, now moving into lesson 41, we introduce the consonant blend, NG. Now, a blend is different from a digraph. A digraph is when you have two letters standing for one sound. For example, SH stands for sh. But in a consonant blend, you have two consonant sounds that are blended together. For example, NG in words ending in ING. For example, or king, K-I-N-G, ing, ing. You hear the two sounds as they are being joined together or blended. So we have bang, bing, bong, rung, hung. And then, of course, we have some, and in the ong, bong family, we have long and song. These are exceptions, a vowel variation. Most of our irregular words in English are comprised of vowel variations, as in that spelling family, the bong, gong, long song. Hong Kong, that's perfectly regular in its sound and its spelling. And then at the bottom of that lesson, we have some short sentences which make use of those words. Now, in lesson 41, we also show how the ing is used to expand these single syllable short words, short vowel words. At the beginning of that lesson, we introduce the name Washington and show how it's divided into 3 syllables: wash, ing, ton. So now you can see the phonetic structure of the word wash, ing, ton. You're not looking at a picture. You're looking at three syllables. Three syllables. How would you say, 3 sounds or 3 syllabic units, each of which has a vowel in it. Ah for Washington, I for ing, and ton, for ton, Washington. And it's very simple for you to then learn the words in this particular lesson. Dab, dabbing, when we add the ing. Gab, gabbing, rob, robbing, rub, rubbing. Ring, ringing, sing, singing, run, running, sun, sunning, etc. Now in lesson 42, we put these words into sentences so that you can have something interesting to read, such as Jan is singing a song, Peg is getting all wet, the cat is licking his leg, Cal is passing the ball, Meg is petting the cat, Bess is washing her doll, etc., etc. Read these sentences and write them, and of course write them in cursive. And your hand will get used to the joining of the ing, for example. I-N-G, I-N-G. You see, your hand learns something, and that knowledge that your hand gains is transferred to your brain. They work together. Your brain and your hand work together, and they help you learn to spell. Now, in lesson 43, we deal with the blends, two consonant blends, ND and NT. ND is ND, as in and, lend, bond, fund, and NT, nt, as ant, bent, hint, bunt, tint, went. As I said, you have a blend of two consonant sounds which make a blend of consonants. It's as easy as that. None of this is terribly difficult. In lesson 44, we put these words into sentences, which of course you should read and write in order to learn how to use these words in contexts. Like Beth is running in the wind. Kent is in the band, etc. Well, now in lesson 45, we deal with the ER sound. The ER is at the end of many words. For example, letter, better, butter, hunter, ER is pronounced in the word her, for example. It's a very simple spelling form that is easy to recognize and easy to articulate. Winter, summer, sister, etc. And of course, at the bottom of that lesson are some short sentences which you should read and write. In lesson 46, we take up the blends NK and NCH. Now, NK is pronounced nk, as in sink, ink, junk. And we also take up NCH, which is a blend of a single consonant letter with a consonant digraph, ch. So we have N with ch, and we get inch, as in ranch, lunch, inch, punch, etc. And also in that lesson, we take up the NC combination, or blend, ink, as in the word zinc. Zinc could have been spelled Z-I-N-K. I don't know why it's spelled Z-I-N-C. These are things we don't know unless you study the etymology of words and find out how they were written, when they were first used, etc., how they were first spelled, etc. That's an interesting subject in and of itself, etymology of words. In lesson 47, we read all of these words in sentences, and of course you should read these sentences and write them in cursive. Lesson 48. We now are dealing with the consonant blends, final consonant blends, CT, FT, PT, and XT. And they are pronounced, the CT is pronounced kt, as in fact, act. The FT is pronounced ft, as in raft, left, lift, etc. The PT you will find in such words as kept, PT, put, kept, wept. And the ST you'll find in such word, the XT you'll find in such words as next and text. At the bottom of that lesson, you'll also find sentences in which those words are used. In lesson 49, we learn another batch of final consonant blends. SK as in sk, bask, ask, task, desk. And SP as in gasp, rasp, or lisp. That's sp, sp, sp. ST is pronounced st, as in cast, best, test, list, lost, dust, etc. And at the bottom of that lesson, you'll find sentences, short sentences, that use these words. In lesson 50, we learn another batch of final consonant blends. LB, LD, LF, and LK. LD is in such a word as bulb. LD in held. LF as in elf or golf. LK as in milk or silk or sulk. Now, there are some irregular words in these spelling families. For example, in the weld family, you have bald, B-A-L-D. The A there is pronounced as or. In the LF family, with such words as self and golf, you have calf and half. They're spelled with LF, but the L is not pronounced. So you have calf, a young calf. Half. I have half a dollar, half dollar. H-A-L-F is pronounced half, as if it were spelled H-A-F-F. And in the LK family, you have talk and walk, where the A is pronounced like the A in all. Talk and walk, even though it's in the milk and silk family. It's talk and walk, as if it was spelled T-A-W-K or W-A-W-K, walk. Now in lesson 51, we have three more consonant blends, final consonant blends, the LM, LP, and LT. LM is pronounced as an elm or film. LP is pronounced as in help, gulp, pulp. LT is pronounced as in belt, melt, hilt, quilt. Now notice that in the LT spelling family, we also have halt, malt, and salt, where the A is pronounced like the aw sound in all and ball. In lesson 52, we have the MP blend, final blend, which is used in many words such as camp, romp, bump, sump, lump, champ, etc. In lesson 53, we have another situation where a consonant is joined or blended with a digraph, TCH, t-ch, as in the word catch, itch, etch, hutch, notch, match, etc. Now in the hatch match family, you have watch, W-A-T-C-H. It seems that when you have a W in front of an A, it changes the sound of the A. Of the A. You can't say watch. You say watch. There's no such word as watch in English. So that's very easy to know that that's watch. In any case, at the bottom of that lesson, there are sentences which you should read, and of course write in cursive. Now in lesson 54, we have the DGE and the NGE. Edge, as in the words madge, edge, wedge, tinge, and also, now the reason why that spelling you have a DGE is to make sure that you pronounce the G in the J form rather than the G form. As you know, the letter G stands for two sounds. The consonant G stands for J, as in gent, gin, gel, and also it stands for the G sound, as in get, got, gut, etc. By adding the E, you know that it's not pronounced bing, it's pronounced binge. It's not pronounced sing, it's pronounced singe. And so these different spelling forms help us pronounce the words correctly. In lesson 55, we have the same kind of situation where we add an E to a blend, ns, and also NSE. And that's because, as you know, the letter C stands for more than one sound. It stands for two sounds, the consonant E. It stands for the K sound, as in cat, and it stands for the S sound, as in cell, C-E-L-L, the organism, a one-celled animal, or in sill, as in pencil. So the E is added there to make sure that you don't say dank, you say dance. You don't say fank, you say fence. You don't, and you don't say sink, you say since, etc. In other words, the spelling form helps you pronounce the words correctly. And that's also when you have the E after the NS, as in dense and sense, there you have a hard S sound. As you know, there are two sounds to S. There's a soft S, as in as and has, and there's the hard sound, as in dense or mass or pass, etc. Again, as I said, the spelling form helps you pronounce the word correctly. Now, in lesson 56, we review all of the words with the final consonant blends. The TCH, the LK, the SK, the ST, the LT, the MP, etc. As with bath, jump, elm, tint, rinse, edge, bank, act, ink, etc. And if you'll notice, all of these words are short vowel words. And the reason why we have not gone into the long vowels yet is because they're much more complicated in their different spelling forms. There's more than one way to spell a long A, for example. So by concentrating, by using only short vowels to teach all of these blends, we expand our vocabulary and we'll be able to read the long vowels much more easily. We'll be able to learn them later on. Now in lesson 57, we take these these blends, these short vowel blends, and put them into two-syllable words, or show them in two-syllable words, like contest, sandwich, selfish, dentist, punish, dustpan, chopstick, etc. Now, you can always take these words and make interesting sentences with them. I know, for example, one mother wrote to me that her daughter wanted to make the Alpha Phonics book more interesting, so she would take many of the words that she had learned and she would make up sentences. Well, that's wonderful. That shows that one is using what one has learned and is expanding their knowledge by using those words in sentences which she could make up, you see. Now, with lesson 58, we begin learning the initial consonant blends. That is, the consonant blends at the beginnings of words. We have learned the consonant blends at the ends of words. Now we're going to learn them at the beginnings of words. And the first one we learn is BL in lesson 58, and BR. BL as in black, blend, blank, blip, block, blush, blah. Or the BR as in bran, brick, brim, brunt, broth, brisk. They're easy words to learn. In lesson 59, we take up the CL and the CR, as in such words as class, click, club, clock, clock, clamp, clan. And with the CR initial consonant blends, they're used in such words as crab, crash, crick, crust, crop, etc. Now, you can make up all the sentences you want with these words. Write them, write them, write sentences with them. You're free to do anything you want with what you have just learned. In lesson 60, we take up the DR and the DW. DR, dr, as in drab, drag, drill, drum, and DW as in dwell or dwelt, etc. In lesson 61, we learn the initial consonant blend FL, as in flab, fled, flip, flush. Easy to learn. In lesson 61, we take up the FR consonant blend, frost, from, Fred, frog. In lesson 62, we take up initial consonant blends GL, GR, and GW, as in glad, or glum, or glass, or the GR, as in grad, or grim, or grudge, or grasp, or grip, and of course GW in the name Gwen. Now in lesson 63, we take up initial consonant blend PL, pl, as in plan, plot, plum, and PR, as in press, prim, prom, print. In lesson 64, we take up the SL consonant blend, as in slab, slap, slept, slid, slink, slot. or slung, etc. There are so many words you learn by simply learning these consonant blends. You're expanding your vocabulary, your reading vocabulary, incredibly fast. Now, in lesson 65, we have a case of an initial consonant blend where we use a digraph, SH, and then a consonant as in shra, as in shrill, shrimp. We all know what a shrimp is. Shrug. We also learn SM, sm, as in smack, smell, smug. And the consonant blend SN is used in such words as snack, snap, snub, snug. In lesson 66, we take up the SP, SPL, and SPR consonant blends. Now these are, the SP is a blend of two sounds, two letters, two sounds, as in span, spin, and spot. But SPL is a blend of three sounds, S-P-L, splash, splint, split. The SPR is also made up of three consonant letters blended together, as in spring, sprint, etc. So you can see how our language is how the alphabetic system permits us to read words by knowing the sounds of the letters and seeing how they can blend together in certain words. In lesson 67, we take up the initial consonant blends, ST and STR. ST is very commonly used in such words as step, staff, stop, still, or staff. STR, again, is a case of three consonant letters, three consonant sounds being blended together. S-T-R, as in strand, strap, strip, strut. In lesson 68, we take up the initial consonant blends SW, SC, SK, and SCR. In SW, we have words like swam, swim, Swiss. With SC, we have such words as scam, scan, scuff. With SK, we have such words as skip, skim, skunk. And SCR, again, is a case of three consonant sounds being blended together. S-C-R, as in scram, scratch, scrod, script, etc. In lesson 69, we take up the initial consonant blend TR, as in track, tram, trap, trip, trust, and also THR and TW. THR, of course, is a case of a consonant digraph with blended with a consonant, R, in such words as thrash, thrush, thrift, thrift, thrill. And with TW, we have such words as twang, 12, twin, twist, and twitch. In lesson 70, we review all of the blends that we have learned, the beginning blends and the final blends. Read all of these words, learn to spell them, write them in cursive, and of course in lesson 71, all of these words are put into sentences which you can read and enjoy. Each sentence is a little story in and of itself. And of course, you should write them. Read them and write them in cursive. That will help you learn to spell. Well, we've gone up to lesson 71. In our next group of lessons, we will take up the long vowels. But I think we have learned enough at this time for you to absorb these, because learning the long vowels will require much more difficult spelling forms. And so I will end the Alpha Phonics lesson up to 71, and we will start the next batch of lessons with lesson 72. But before I end this particular batch of lessons, I want to draw your attention to a very interesting fact. You know, I have written and I have proven that the methods used in our schools to teach children to read, that is the look-say method, causes dyslexia. Now, the look-say method was created by the progressive educators early in the last century. And of course, they tried it out in private schools first before they put it in the public schools. But you know, we learned very early that these teaching methods, these methods of teaching reading, could cause dyslexia. How? Because John D. Rockefeller Jr. was very much intrigued by progressive education, and he donated $3 million to the Lincoln School, which was created in 1917, because he so much admired what the progressives were doing. And he sent 4 of his sons to the Lincoln School to be educated. And would you know that those 4 sons came out of that school becoming dyslexic? Nelson, Lawrence, Winthrop, and David Rockefeller all became dyslexic because of the way they were being taught to read in the Lincoln School. Isn't that amazing that the richest boys in America became dyslexic because their father put them in a progressive school where they taught them to read by the whole word method? So we've known as early as that time that the look-say method could cause dyslexia. But in those days, they never blamed the teaching method. They just assumed that there was something wrong with the children. Now, I hope that you're not one of these individuals who was taught to read by the whole word method in your public school and thereby became reading disabled or functionally illiterate or dyslexic. But here you have the opportunity to correct the handicap that you were given by your school. You can get rid of that handicap of dyslexia, that handicap of functional illiteracy or of reading disability by relearning to read with Alpha Phonics. And so with that thought in mind, I hope that you will stay with us and complete the Alpha Phonics program, because at the end of this program, you will know how to read. And of course, I strongly urge you to get hold of a copy of the Alpha Phonics book. so that you could learn to read at your leisure. You don't have to use a computer. You don't have to stare at a monitor. You can actually learn to read at home, whenever you want, wherever you want, traveling, at the beach, or whatever. Thank you for watching this program, and I look forward to seeing you again for the next final lessons of Alpha Phonics.